Hello and welcome to Risky Play in the Digital Age. This is approximately an hour webinar, and it's put together for parents, educators, and learning community leaders and policymakers. My name is Tyler Summers. I am a parent of three young children, ages 6, 9, and 12. I guess the 12-year-old's not that young anymore, sadly. And I'm an educator with over 35 years of practical experience. And I'm a play advocate, and I've worked with families, schools, and learning communities, helping them to reimagine childhood through the lens of self-directed, socially informed, digitally aware play, with risky play being a significant focus. And if you'd like to know more about me, I am just putting some information in the chat here. You can find me at nurturingplay.org, and I can be emailed at tyler@nurturingplayalso.org. So we're going to start out with a quote here. This quote that you see on the screen sat on a colleague's desk for decades. We worked together creating one of the most impactful and rewarding not-for-profit organizations that to this day embodies a way forward, a model that I believe is needed more now than ever. And here's the quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And of course, this is by a quote by Margaret Mead. And Mead believed that understanding under other cultures could help solve social problems, and she saw children and youth as a key to creating a better future, which of course is a wonderful springboard to jump from here and the work that I do. The talks, workshops, and courses that I offer are a culmination of lived experience alongside the extraordinary people that have given me so much. And this is just one small way of being in service to the many children and families that have enriched my life. This won't be a overly academic lecture, just by the nature that I'm not an academic, I'm a practitioner, but a coming together of three key pillars. And if you've registered for this, you'll know what those key pillars are. They are parents and their children sort of bundled together. There's a section for educators and a section for leaders and policymakers. And I believe that when these three groups unite, organized and informed, we can do better by our children, and in so forge a better future for all, a future where play is a right for all children, which it is. And that play and playfulness is never lost as we transition into adulthood. As we only have 1 hour, please know that we are just sort of scratching the surface on a number of topics. If you're interested in diving deeper, I do offer consulting, talks, workshops, and courses. Currently running for early childhood educators that find themselves working with school-age children and school-age educators and community leaders. I'm offering a 27-hour, 9-module course called Nurturing Play and Beyond. This course was, of course, made possible through a grant from the Government of Canada and Province of British Columbia that was designed to fill the gap in accessible, high-quality, regularly recurring courses for folks working in the school-age sector. Really excited that our 8th cohort is going to be kicking off this August 9th. It runs for 4 weeks with weekly 2-hour facilitated sessions that are led by subject matter experts, Tony Tsang and myself. And the participants will explore 3 of the 9 modules and then have a 2-hour session together with Tony and I, where we practice something called a self-reflective practice approach. This is where learners self-assess the material they've covered on a self-determined scale, and then they decide what experiences might follow to deepen their learning in the course material, sort of like a choose your own adventure. And we're really excited about how well this has functioned. Tony and I have just had so much fun and joy and learning going on these journeys with educators as they explore through self-reflection. So you can find more information on my website that I've already put in the chat. So let's dive into it. Let's get into the material. What is risky play, and how does it build resilience, self-regulation, and interdependence? And this is what we're going to cover for parents. And we're also going to dive into understanding how to balance screen time with meaningful real world experiences. So that's our sort of first focus. And then, of course, for educators, we're going to dive into learning safe approaches to integrate risky play into your programming while introducing digital literacy through creative play and modeling responsible screen use with children. So for educators, really diving into how do we take this opportunity where we're positioned as this really important part of children and families' lives to be that lift in digital literacy that we see often falling between the cracks with children ages 3 through 12. Everyone's busy, right? Parents, educators, teachers, coaches, everyone's busy. And often children aren't getting the support they need to dive into this digital world that they're often deeply immersed in safely. And then our third pillar is, of course, for leaders and policymakers. We're going to explore policies that support risky play as a child's right, address digital overexposure, and empower educators and families through meaningful policy shifts. So we're just going to cover a few really key policy shifts that would really create create an environment where children are able to increase risky play and self-directed social play, and also be involved in the digital world in a more safe and meaningful way. So we're going to dive into that. All right, here we go. So without further ado, parents, you're probably wondering, why are you first up? Well, there's a good reason for this, because many parents today are stretched super thin, and they're often the ones that would need to perhaps leave the earliest from a webinar. So this is for you. Of course, this is going to be emailed to everyone on the webinar today. It is 1 whole hour, and parents, who has 1 whole hour to do just one thing? And of course, you can watch this video later on when you're out there spinning the million plates that you do as parents. Okay, so I'm just going to share a link here to a website called playoutsideubc.ca. This is a website put together by Dr. Mariana Brucioni, the director at the Human Early Learning Partnership at UBC. And she is an expert in risky play, along with many other things, and has created and put together this through research and through lots of work directly with families and children. This definition of what risky play is. So we're going to spend a little bit of time diving into this, and I'm just going to take a little sip. So what is risky play? It is thrilling and exciting play where children engage in risk without certainty. And this is really the key piece here: without certainty. Risky play could be considered going up into heights, climbing, speed, and being in motion, things like running, diving, crashing, rolling, engaging with different tools like hammers, whittling with knives, axes, drills, lathes, files, and also risky elements. Think about water, fire, Steve's lava chicken, rough and tumble play. I offer an offshoot workshop on how to bring rough and tumble play with weapons play to life in childcare programs, and it's doable. Like I said, over my 35 years back in practicing in childcare, we did this. Another element of risky play is disappearing, and of course, independence. So what is disappearing? That's games like hide and seek, eagle's eye, building forts, caves, tunnels. These experiences where children feel as if they're truly on their own. And of course, in my childhood, I grew up on a farm. This may be, the time to think back to your own childhood. How many of these elements of risky play did you get a chance to experience? I got a chance to experience a ton. I was also a skateboarder, so thinking about dangerous tools, high speed, climbing, motion, diving, crashing, all these sorts of things, figuring out, can I, jump down these stairs? Will I be able to make this trick? And no one watching, it's just you against the potential of failure over and over again. But I want to circle back to this notion of without certainty. This matters because seeking certainty, a child explores interdependence, practices self-regulation, and experiences failure over and over again. When engaged in risky play, a child practices one of the most important developmental life skills. Can you think about what that might be? Well, it's determination. Determination to do difficult things. And before we watch a short video from one of my favorite thought leaders in the education space, Dr. Shelley Moore, on the importance of children doing hard or difficult things, let's take a moment to explore why risky play matters and how its impact varies depending on a child's age. Because many of you, like me, have children of different ages, and of course, those of you that are practicing in childcare or in education may have multi-age childcare or classrooms. So let's first start with the ages of 3 to 5 years old. Of course, ages and stages, there's different schools of thought around this. It's not the same for all 3 to 5 year olds. Obviously, it's a spectrum. But risky play, of course, builds gross motor skills. It can build confidence through that, sense, oh, I can do this. This is difficult. I figured out intrinsically how to motivate myself, how to do something difficult. And it practices early risk assessment abilities through testing boundaries like climbing, balancing, running fast. Also, supervised risky play can help children learn cause and effect, engage, what's safe versus what's unsafe. So think about, your 3 to 5 year old testing limits, figuring out how things work, poking at boundaries and social cues. This is hot. This is steep. This is, how far down is it from here to here? Think about the language that you use when you're with children this age and they're engaging in risky play situations, such as climbing high. And again, this is for all three pillars of this webinar. Are you restricting or are you offering encouragement? So I want to talk a little bit about offering encouragement. And again, another offshoot workshop that I facilitate is learning something called responsive language that really can go a long way in supporting children in their healthy social and emotional development. Responsive language by a parent educator is built on four areas of practice. One is called nurturing control. That's when we say things like, when we do this, then we can do that, kind of moving a child through with declarative language through a process. When we put away the Lego, when we tidy up our room, we can go outside and go off to a play date or, visit with aunts and uncles or, the fun thing that's up next. The second is logic and reasoning. Offering reasons and rationale for limits and consequences, rather than just saying, no, you can't do that, or, mentioning the consequence, we get right into, the logic and reasoning behind whatever that limit might be, such as when we wear a coat in the rain, our bodies can stay dry and warm. And number three is encouraging independence and autonomy. This is a huge one. Eliza will join us when she's picked up her clothes off the ground. And then the fourth is elaborating, explaining in detail so a child can more fully understand what it is that's happening around them, such as when we leave our clothes on the floor, they may get damaged or dirty. It sounds obvious, but what will happen, and this was from, many years being in the childcare space, training new staff members, when I gave them these four sort of approaches to the language they use, it's quite transformative, and they would find that the children they were with were able to follow along, and knowing that they were trusted, and that built a much stronger connection. This works with parents, this works with your own children. Obviously, you'll find your own way to say these things, and this is not an exhaustive way, but certainly it will have a long-term benefit as opposed to restrictive language, where you just say, because I said so, you need to do this. So that's that piece. 6 to 9 year olds, risky play, of course, develops problem solving, independence, and resilience. Again, it's not just restricted to 6 to 9 year olds. This can be across the full spectrum of age. And in 6 to 9 year old, kids tend to seek more complex risks. They really want to use that knife to do some whittling or use the hammer and the nail. They want to climb higher to the top of the tree or to the climbing structure. And they get right into a group rough and tumble play. And this is when self-regulation and social negotiations are coming to the surface and really influenced by the experiences children are having through this time during risky play. So think about arguments, struggles, and solutions to problems encountered. When you reframe some of these struggles as, well, this is developmentally appropriate, this is evidence of your child seeking exactly what they need, you will be less likely as a parent or caregiver to sort of shut down that risky play. You will see that this is their learning, this is their work. And it can also help you kind of not get triggered yourself and sort of go bonkers. I know that sometimes I, feel like I'm not a very patient person, but when I understand what's happening is what should be happening developmentally, I can kind of relax and back off and let the play unfold. I just want to share with you something here. Are there any improv people? So if you've ever taken improv acting before, you may have heard of the rule of the yes and rule, where you never shut down an improv idea. It's always a yes and. Guiding children through risky play at this age is kind of the same game. They're going to ask you to do tons of stuff. I want to climb to the top of that tree. I want to roll down that hill. I want to throw an egg off the roof. I want to build a fort. I want to whittle with a knife. It's always a yes and then figure out the collaborative journey together of how to make what they want to do happen without losing a limb. So guiding your kiddos to solve as many of these problems by referring them to each other for solutions, ideas, and consequences is a great plan, particularly if they are engaged in risky play in a multi-age environment. So you have younger and older children, refer them to each other to work through some of the challenges that appear during risky play. You're all good. You're grown up. You probably have lots of solutions and ideas. Don't jump in. Don't override that learning. This is an opportunity to step back and let children figure this out. That's why a lot of risky play is recommended to be low to no supervision. Obviously, in childcare, you've got to supervise your kids. But parents, you can back away. You can let them be in the yard. You can have play areas where there's some boundaries that and let them go. Certainly 12-year-olds, I'll let my 12-year-old go to the park with his friends. I'm nowhere. If they get into trouble, they got to find their way out, which is the segue for our 10 to 12-year-olds. These are our pre-adolescents, okay? So this is attitudes, opinions, assumptions, and more. Risky play prepares them for the real world of adolescence. It shifts to more social and exploratory challenges, cycling alone, navigating new environments. This kind of play builds executive function, confidence, and healthy boundaries. Risky play during these years lays the neurological groundwork for self-control, stress regulation, and independence later in life. I know what you're thinking. Well, my kid's in team sports, karate, acting. They're learning valuable lessons there, of course, really valuable developmental lessons, but this is not risky play. Risky play does not have an agenda, a prescribed outcome, or any real serious external parental or adult guidance. The child during risky play constructs most of the play and is given the opportunity to make sense of the world around them in their own individual group and individual contexts. So now let's give my voice a 2-minute break. We're going to listen to Dr. Shelley Moore. I'm going to pop the link to this 5-minute video in the chat. I'm only going to share 2 minutes of it with you because we've got lots to cover today. But I just really wanted to share this with you because it talks a little bit about the importance of doing difficult things.
To describe what we can do, but things that are hard. And maybe they'll be hard forever, but they're still possible. Like, what's that called? So I called one of my mentors, Faye Brownlee, a matriarch of inclusion, and I asked her, Faye, what do you call those things like in your life that are hard? Are they weaknesses? Oh, Shelley, no, she said. Hard things are definitely not weaknesses, because actually weaknesses are often things we can't control. Like, for example, a broken ankle, she said. Once you break your ankle, even with all the physiotherapy and rehabilitation, it will never be as strong as it was before you broke it. Your ankle's weak. But if you only focus on the fact that you have a broken, weak ankle, we're just reminding ourselves about how strong it isn't. That's not very strength-based at all. Well, then do we just avoid using our ankle? Just avoid things that are hard, I asked. Oh, Shelley, no, she said. Hard things are so important for us to work on throughout our lives, but these aren't weaknesses, they're stretches. You see, stretches hurt. They hurt really bad, especially if you haven't done them in a long time. But here's the best part. Faye reminded me that the more you stretch, the stronger you get.
There you go. It's just a little clip from that.
To describe.
So you're gonna ask me. That's sort of it for our risky play part for parents. We're gonna get into some of the digital age stuff in a second, but I just want to do a quick chat about, well, what you read in the slide here. That's good stuff, Tyler. But what about my neurodiverse child? Oh, so yes, I've put together a little bit of information here about the value of risky play for children that are on the ADHD autism spectrum and sort of compare it to neurotypical children. So for risky play, you can see the participation rate for neurotypical children is declining generally, which is upsetting. And for ADHD and autistic children, it's often lower due to barriers. So there are some real barriers in place when risky play is offered. For play preferences for neurotypical children, lots of rough and tumble heights. And then for autistic children, the preferences are often more sensory rich, structured, imaginative risky play. So I can let you figure out what that might mean for your child. My child, my eldest, is neurodiverse with a ADHD diagnosis and inklings of being on the autism spectrum. Of course, there's overlap there. The mental health outcomes, of course, for neurotypical children engaging in risky play, anxiety and depression decreases, mood increases. And for neurodiverse children, great gains when supported play interventions are used. And I'll get into that in a second. Executive function and creative gains, develops resilience and self-regulation for neurotypical children. And then for neurodiverse, ADHD linked to divergent thinking gains, which is fantastic. And then there are barriers to participation, of course. The main barriers are safety regulations, over-regulation in a lot of cases, and then more barriers to access and supervision, stigma, and design limitations. So how do we take these away for our neurodiverse children? The priority is to prioritize access over protectiveness and make sure that that's balanced with the access to sensory-rich risky play and free play, adapting activities, offering challenging yet safe options, climbing speed, rough and tumble play with scaled boundaries. Think about, of course, structured play supports, visuals, schedules, peer support can increase engagement and pro-social outcomes of risky play, and then building that self-regulation through this experience. Repeat varied risky play can help all children, of course, including neurodiverse children, to develop internal risk assessment and coping skills, which I know for myself is something that I worry a lot about with my 12-year-old and many of you with neurodiverse children. We really want them to be able to develop risk assessments and coping skills because, let's be honest, childhood for neurodiverse people is difficult. I've heard that, later on in life, it can get quite a bit better, but it's really difficult. The world really is not set up to support neurodiverse people through childhood nearly as well as it could be. And then finally, celebrating strength-based traits. A call back to Dr. Shelley Moore's talking about stretches that can be painful, can be difficult, but it can create strength. So for ADHD in particular, supporting creative and divergent play styles, imaginative sensory play, mastery-based play resonates best. Okay, so I've covered that. Now, I should have a sound that goes dun, 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 because now we're going to get into the digital world. So let's explore the digital world now and how influential this is in not only our lives, but in our children's lives. And I just want to say as a disclaimer, don't worry, I'm not going to use scare tactics or try to guilt you into banning all devices at home. Remember our slide earlier about why we're here. What we've explored is risky play and how it builds resilience, self-regulation, and independence. Now we're going to seek to understand how to balance screen time with meaningful real-world experiences such as rich, meaningful, multi-age, self-directed social play with risky play at the forefront. So we want to increase that and seek to understand the digital world and perhaps just be more mindful with how much we're getting into here. So the science behind screens, of course, is that all of us, but mostly children, in terms of being vulnerable, are hooked by design. What we need to understand is that most digital content kids interact with, especially under the ages of 12, is intentionally designed to be addictive, to elicit this dopamine response. Bright colors, surprise rewards, autoplay, endless scroll. These are just a few of the features that we'll find in a lot of the games and the types of content that children are consuming. Just look at some of the streaming content that you'll see, some of the activities where they're watching other people playing games. These are dopamine triggers. These platforms are engineered to keep kids watching, swiping, tapping, often at the expense of play, at the expense of sleep and rest, and most importantly, at the expense of real-world connection. And worryingly, there's no big warning labels for parents or educators. Knowing this is the first step so that we can guide kids well if we don't understand what they're up against. So we want to really understand that children are up against this. I was born in the analog age. I had the pleasure of my brain developing without the existence of the digital world as it is today. It's very different for people and children growing up in the digital age. So let's take a quick look at what's happening here in the UK. I'm in the UK right now. I moved here 2 years ago. So I'm going to contrast and compare UK and Canada for you parents out there. Currently in the UK, about 1 in 4 children aged 3 or 4 already own a smartphone. By age 8, that number stays steady. But by the time kids reach 11, 90% of children have their own smartphone. That's like a high-powered supercomputer in their pocket with godlike powers and extremely addictive qualities. And this isn't just borrowing a parent's, this is their own. And by age 12, it's nearly universal that everyone has a smartphone. These numbers aren't just stats, they reflect a massive shift in childhood, one where personal, pocket-sized access to the digital world becomes the norm before many children even hit puberty. Now let's look at Canada. Among kids ages 9 to 11, about 57% own a smartphone, a little better. By 12 to 13, that jumps to 81, and 14 to 17, 93%, almost every teen. But when we look at children under 9, it's a different picture. While around 60% of toddlers and preschoolers regularly use touchscreens, actual device ownership is still relatively low in that age group. So while young kids are very much in the digital world, most aren't yet carrying it in their pockets, at least not in Canada. Does this mean Canada is better? Not necessarily. It could just be a population piece. I've also noted that the UK has perhaps more stringent safeguarding strategies. There's a sort of a larger sort of fear coefficient around children's safety and abduction and so on. Although if you look clearly at the statistics, it's getting better over time. And this is evidenced through in Canada in schools, you don't see large fences around schools and areas cordoned off as much. In the UK, every school that I've seen has big fences with locking things up at right at 3:30, everything gets locked down. So there is very much evidence of this fear. So what do you do if your child is out on their own? Well, you give them a phone so you can keep tabs on them. That could be why there's that discrepancy there. So here's a quote that really says it all. For those of you who are familiar with The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, today's kids have traded in a play-based childhood for a phone-based one, and They are not all right. This quote obviously reflects a core message, and frankly, mine too. We've shifted away from real world social physical play and moved into a world that is sometimes isolated, screen based, and dopamine charged. Are the consequences there? Yes, they absolutely are. We're seeing them every day in raising anxiety, attention challenges, and disconnection, not just in teens, but in children as young as 3, 4, and 5. So we've got a lot to do. So Tyler, what's the solution? How do we solve this problem? Well, don't worry, got you covered. Got 10 actionable things that you can implement at home or in your programs if you're in a childcare setting or school setting tomorrow that encourage growth in the digital world and perhaps some acceptable risks around how to reframe this and how to set the balance straight. Now, is this like everything? Have I just solved the problem? No, it takes all three pillars. We all need to come together: families and children, educators, and of course, folks that are in the role around policy. So those are the groups that need to come together. We need to get informed and take action. But here's some things you can do right now. First, rewire for balance. We often think kids just need more discipline. How's that going? But it's not about willpower. It's about what's within reach. So if a device is on the couch or buzzing on the table, or if you have got TVs everywhere in the house, they'll grab the device and use it. But if our devices are stored in a drawer, set on airplane mode, or simply not in the room, they're less likely to default to it. So it's just like having a bowl of fruit visible and crisps hidden helps with healthy eating. Changing the environment helps with screen time too. So build balance by making play, books, and outdoor time easier to access and screens a little harder to reach. I will say, when I moved out to the UK, I was kind of shocked by how many folks have, the TV just on at all hours. Consider, putting that TV in a room away from where everyone coalesces. You might see a real difference in how people get together and the amount of consumption of digital products that there are involved. Why am I having a hard time saying that? Anyway, we're going to build play back in. So there's something called constructivist play, where kids create, explore, and solve problems. It's a powerful antidote to passive screen time. So think about cardboard boxes, fabric strips, natural materials, and interest-based play kits. I can dive into that in more detail later. You don't need fancy toys or Pinterest-worthy setups. You just need open-ended play materials that invite curiosity. If you walked around my house, you'd see boxes cut up and markers out. Yes, they struggle with tidying up, right? But I'll take that over the constant, need to be on their screens. It's a really interesting experience to have young children where very quickly their iPads become sort of the center of their lives. And we've really had to work intentionally to change that. When kids are immersed in self-directed play, their brains light up in all the right ways, far more than when they're swiping through a feed. So bridging the digital gap. So instead of always fighting their screen obsessions, try bridging them into the real world, into real life. If they love Minecraft, help them build a Minecraft fort. If they're into YouTube dance trends, host a dance party. If they love the unboxing videos, well, unbox something cool at home. Have your own in the real world. This approach validates their interests and gently pulls them back into the physical world. You're not cutting them off. You're translating their passions into active, connected offline experiences. And it's amazing how powerful this can be, to the point where your children will ask for this instead of their iPads. Takes a while though. All right, get him a dumb phone. I know we threatened this with my 12-year-old because we did get him an iPhone when we were worried about him going off to high school, and we regret it. Full stop. We have threatened this. It'd be a little painful for everybody to do this, but this is a real option. And for our younger children, this is something we're considering. Kids do need to communicate with us, but that doesn't mean they need Instagram in their pocket. They need a basic dumb phone that has calling, text, and can be a GPS. It's the perfect middle ground. It gives kids safety and connection without the overwhelm of social media or endless entertainment. If your child's under 13, especially, This can be a game changer in protecting their mental health while giving you peace of mind. Play, park, playground, garden. Some of the most meaningful brain enriching play happens after school, outdoors, with kids of different ages. So think about the park, a safe street, a shared garden. These are prime places where kids naturally challenge and support one another. In Canada, school grounds are often open after hours for this very reason. I remember having my childcare center operating and having the public come around. And while we had some safeguarding, techniques in place, it was wonderful. There'd be kids coming back, multi-age playing, and they had the best play sessions. So if you're lucky to have access to one of these spaces, use it. It's not just play, it's social learning, physical movement, and emotional regulation all in one. Wonderful parks here in the UK. Why not create a group of parents where they come together and, each week, there's a couple days a week where there's a park, a couple parents go and volunteer to supervise, and all the kids that want just funnel down there and get a couple good hours of play in before night sinks in, and they can get that rich, multi-age, self-directed, risky social play in their play diet. Okay, so I'm going to promote school-age childcare, also that's known in the UK as wraparound care. This is one of the most powerful tools we have for tipping the balance back towards play-based childhoods. I will say that over and over again. I will climb to the top of a mountain and scream this loudly. These programs are already embedded in schools. They just need funding, staffing, and the philosophy to truly support open-ended play and connection. When done right, these places, these childcare places, can become sanctuaries of creativity and belonging before and after the school bell. And ideally, a space for every child should be available. So if that school has an enrollment of 200-300 children, that childcare space would have space for 200 or 300 children with delicious snacks, play, well-trained educators that know exactly how to develop everything that these kids really, really need. So that's the gold mine right there. And that's one of my key messages that I'll share endlessly until it actually happens. And then finally, parents, you guys, you're real life characters. We're often busy. We often are the ones that are there with our phones in front of us, and we're modeling this unsafe behavior. But Albert Bandura, social cognitive theory of learning, taught us that we learn by observing others. And that's especially true for kids. But you, parents, are their main character, their model, their sitcom lead. So lean into it. Be hilarious. Tell stories, narrate your actions. And yes, a little physical comedy can go a long way when making lunch or folding laundry. When you make the mundane fun, you're not just getting through the day, although it is easier when you're having fun. You're showing your kids how to find joy in everyday life. That's powerful modeling. Be the story they want to live in, not the background noise to their screen. So parents, you can play such a huge role in just being wacky, crazy, fun, bonkers people that your kids want nothing else but you, to spend time with you. I recently had a hip replacement, so I'm a little injured, and my kids are just still constantly, like, while I'm sitting down, they're throwing stuffies at me and getting me to play catch, going outside and sort of hobbling around. It's difficult, but I make time to do it. And you just get into the rough and tumble play, lots of tickles, lots of contact, lots of fun. And this is one of the key pieces that'll keep your children well nourished and away from the screens. So I've put something together for everybody here. It's a really simple digital consumption schedule. This is sort of the wrap up for parents that I wanted to share with you. I've also got a QR code here that I'm going to share with you in a second. But really what I want you to do is think about a practical resource that you can use personally or share with other parents and circulate among educators and even pass on to policymakers. It's more than just a handout. So click on the QR code, it'll bring up a PDF. This is an example of how leadership can set the tone for reining in our collective and often unhealthy relationship with digital devices. This tool can make a big difference together. And what it really does is allows you to do a little bit of a survey of how much screen time is happening in all the different stakeholder groups, create a bit of a web of care, and then you can put together a schedule that, really is aware of how much screen time they're getting. I know when I calculate what my kids are getting when it's down to the smart boards, the apps they have when they come home from school and they're told to go on Educake or some other app, for learning, and I'm going to get into that a little later. It's not great. It adds up really, really quickly. So I think when parents come together, educators and policymakers come together to really see the big picture and work together around digital consumption, we're going to be more intentional with lifting the ban on certain types of play, with integrating a lots more self-directed, unstructured playtime, and decreasing that sort of addiction we have to how make digital devices make our lives easier and faster. They actually don't. They make our lives often sadder and more anxious. There's an ad for Meta. Download our newest Facebook app. It'll make you feel sad and anxious. Bing. No, they would not do that. No one, that's not going to happen. Okay, so educators, it's your turn. So here we go. Everything we've covered for parents so far, it applies to you. But let's go a bit further. You have a powerful role in shaping risk with screens and risky play. So here are some key actions to focus on. So number one, we're going to talk a little bit about risk versus hazard. So this is something I see happen in childcare programs all the time. And the result is like, we can't do risky play, and not realizing that those are actually hazards. So jumping out of a swing into the air, is that a risk or a hazard? Well, that's risky play. Unsupervised water play, that's a hazard. Okay, they get drowned. Broken toys, a hazard. Climbing a tree, that's risky play. Tackling your friend to the ground, risky play. Picking up 2 sticks for a sword fight, it's risky play. I know many are like, that's a hazard, you're going to take their eye out. Well, there are ways to intervene, particularly in the childcare space, and play. Pool noodles, you can play with those, as your swords. Obviously, sticks can be dangerous. We're not going to dive into that too much, but there is a way. If there's a will, there's a way. So you can go through this together, hot surfaces, rolling down hills. You can cover this, determine what is a risk and a hazard. Risks help children challenge themselves and build confidence, and hazards are hidden dangers that kids can't reasonably assess or avoid. For example, if a child's climbing a sturdy tree, choosing their next step carefully, that's a risk. But if the branches are brittle and about to snap, that's a hazard. This activity will also help us sharpen our lens so we can better support healthy, age-appropriate risk-taking while managing actual safety concerns. Your licensing officer or Ofsted here in the UK will thank you for your awareness of this. The second is knowing that parents are busy, schools are stretched thin, childcare centers are perfectly positioned to make a huge impact on the digital world by making digital literacy a consistent and key part of their programming. That's right. Just banning devices and saying, no, we don't do any of this, it doesn't help anybody, right? So our job is multi-layered as educators. Kids are growing up surrounded by screens, yet we're often not teaching them how to engage with technology safely or critically. Parents don't have the time to do this often, and certainly teachers and educators don't have the time to do this often. Without guidance, they're vulnerable to misinformation, cyberbullying, these unhealthy screen habits. And just like we prepare them for the physical world, we need to be just as intentional about preparing them for the digital one. Now, I'll be honest, I know risky play in the world isn't the same as risky play online. I'm being a little bit cheeky when I'm drawing a parallel here, and there isn't. But I realize that knowing how to get involved in digital literacy is key, and that risky play does unfold in some cases in some of the digital games that are unfolding though in front of us. Okay. Oh, I forgot these are up here. Childcare programs are prepared for real world development, and without guidance, children face risks in the digital world just like they do IRL in the real world. Okay, so here's some ideas. Here you go, educators. We're just going to roll through these. These are some things you can do in your program to help build digital literacy and get them one step closer to a healthy relationship with digital devices. So you can create and edit videos together. So you can organize a film festival at your center, video-wide video challenge. You can introduce editing, through iMovie or Canva or CapCut. You can teach basic video safety, avoiding sharing personal info, respecting copyright laws. And of course, you can get into the creative part of this, of writing scripts and how this is going to unfold and building confidence in media literacy. So what is on the other side of the content they're consuming? The creator side. And there's lots of creativity there. As somebody who's created a lot of social media content, it's so much fun. So that can be one way to get their knowledge in digital literacy cruising. Second is walking through how to explore online forums and social spaces safely. So there's like Minecraft education sites. There's one called Scratch. There's kid-friendly forums. You can teach children netiquette and role play online scenarios and guide children in creating group agreements for digital interactions. So a lot of the unsafe situations that children will find them around exploring online forums can only be mitigated if we actually teach them what to look out for and how to be respectful online and what some of the etiquette is, the netiquette is, and in this space. Third is learning to code, right? Coding is, although everyone says AI is going to take over coding, you can still learn vibe coding. You can still learn different approaches to coding, teaching computational thinking and problem solving. It encourages logical thinking, creative real-world tech skills, building on a foundation for future digital literacy. So computer science is real. There's the people out there doing very well in their careers in computer science right now. So how do you implement this? Again, help them explore platforms like Scratch or code.org, Tinker for beginner coding, and then create small coding projects like interactive stories or mini games, and pairing students for collaborative coding challenges. So the work together in coding, albeit in front of a screen, can be very collaborative and draw on lots of social skills. You can get into playing online games safely. So again, this is that digital stewardship piece, developing digital citizenship through play. Oof, say that 3 times fast. So encourage educational cooperative games like I'll say this a lot, Minecraft education, Roblox Studio, tons of sketchy stuff going on there, but also lots of wonderful games. So if you're the first in there, kind of seeing how this is happening, hosting, childcare center discussions on game behavior, moderation tools and safety, and most importantly, teaching children how to recognize and report inappropriate content. You can do this together. And then how do you do a safe online search? Google searches, AI searches, ChatGPT. These are things that, again, teaching children fake versus real, fact checking, looking at different search engines and showing how to identify credible sources. You're never really too young to learn how this is. Okay, 3 maybe a bit too young, but 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds can learn how to figure out how to identify misinformation, right? There's adults that struggle with this hugely. So I don't think that many of us learned how to do this. That could be a course on its own, by the way. That's what it says right there. Parent workshop alert. Next step, using social media for learning. I say this cautiously. Again, if you're managing the amount of time on social media, it can be really cool for different games and different activities. There's lots, kind of like Pinterest. You can find lots of social media that teaches educational content and offers it to children. But again, I personally do not recommend giving a child a social media account unless it's directly managed by a parent until they're, I'm going to say it, 16. Yeah. Do you know who else did that? Bill Gates. Yeah. So these people that own billion-dollar companies, they don't let their kids have a lot of these devices until they're quite a bit older. A bit of a red flag there, don't you think? This is a really cool one, writing and publishing online, blogs, different types of content that you can create, digital magazines. This is an excellent exercise in digital literacy through writing and creativity. And digital music, so much fun. And also art, yes, like NFTs. And music can be a wonderful way. Canva, GarageBand, Procreate are excellent platforms for this. You can host a digital art gallery in the metaverse. There's lots of really fun things that children can do here. And then teaching smart media consumption. So navigating video platforms, just straight up another parent workshop idea. This is huge. Should be a prerequisite maybe for all children before any other activities. Learning about YouTube, TikTok, streaming platforms, Instagram. These are all designed to keep us watching. The algorithms are set, as we've talked about, to be really dopamine rich. So children at a very young age, if they know this is at work, they can maybe practice some interesting scroll or pattern interrupt techniques where they're right into something and you can challenge them to be like, you really want to scroll next, step away. That strengthens a neural pathway that activates a protective mechanism against addictive behaviors. Lots of different things you can do. Recognize what clickbait is, misinformation again, and then screen time limits and helpful, clean media habits. So how do you develop these habits? Setting timers, etc. So again, childcare centers, this is wonderful work you can do with children and promote it to your parents. These are the things we teach in our program, and start off maybe with that digital consumption schedule so that they can see what's available, how much time you can program into your program without digital overload. So that's that one. And then finally, spotting clickbait and misinformation can be its own section. There we go. So that's it, educators. So educators through watching the part for parents and this part, you've got lots to go on. If you need more, you know where to go. Okay, leaders and policymakers. This next section is for you. And what are leaders and policymakers? Who are these people? These would be people that are in, what do we call them? Government. They work as maybe principals, or they are owners of childcare centers, possibly even they are people. A policymaker might also be somebody that is a what do we call council leader here in the UK, a head of a council. Anyway, you know who you are. I don't need to tell you if you're a leader and policy maker, but this is for you. So let's dive in with the real cost of digital overexposure. So excessive ed tech. And what's ed tech? This is education technology. This is prolific. It seems to be everywhere. And it doesn't just drain attention, it erodes mental health and social skills. What we're seeing is rising anxiety, shorter attention spans, dopamine overload, all while social and emotional learning takes a back seat. We need policy level awareness of the true toll long school day screen exposures take on children's development. So these are some of the real costs of digital overexposure. So the second thing that I want to share with policymakers is that it's a child's right to play. It's Article 31, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. This is enshrined, which recognizes the child's right to rest, leisure, and play, and to participate in recreational activities that are appropriate to their age. But here's the thing. In practice, we're not always upholding that right, especially when risky, messy, or inconvenient. Risky play, when well supported, teaches children how to assess danger, solve problems, and build resilience. But by over prioritizing digital safety while undervaluing real world risk, we create an imbalance. If we truly believe play is a right, we must protect it, not just in principle, but in policy, in schools, childcare settings, and community design. And I do have to say that when my child went into high school, poof, all play disappeared. Gone by. Children were running in the halls, playing tag. Endpoint. Now you've got a detention. That is just wrong. So what are some thematic programmatic shifts that I think would make a big difference for policymakers? Well, they're right here for you. Number one is to fund transformative training in digital literacy. So invest in free, easy to access digital literacy training so educators can guide safe, critical tech use, not just teach content, right? So in a lot of classrooms, we're just teaching content. In a lot of childcare centers, we have a program where we're not actually getting into the nuts and bolts, the guts of what's not safe and what is safe in the digital world. The second is normalize outdoor risky play as a core curriculum, not just a luxurious add-on. Risky play shouldn't just be for people that have the luxury of extra time. And this is in this call to action that I have around opening up childcare spaces, school playgrounds, schools in general that are closed right at 3 o'clock, and ensuring that parents and educators and policymakers come together and create a lot of opportunity for outdoor risky play. You can go to some of the Nordic countries where there's these outdoor schools where kids are climbing trees, throwing axes, playing with sticks. There's a really cool one in Norway where over 17 years, the teacher who's, university trained, um, has only had one injury over 17 years. And that was a parent picking up a child driving over their foot with a car. Stepping out on the sidewalk is 1,000 times more dangerous than children getting involved in risky play. So my third is limit EdTech overload in classrooms. So we need to reassess the use of screen devices during the school day, smart boards, Class Dojo, in-class apps that may be overstimulating and counterproductive. Research shows that traditional methods, pen, paper, discussions, inquiry-based and project-based learning often outperform screen-based instruction in comprehension, retention, and engagement. One meta-analysis found active project-based learning yields significantly higher learning gains compared to tech-heavy lessons. There's this French app where somebody, I can find it for you if you'd like, won the competition on this French learning app. It was sort of like a Khan Academy sort of thing. And then when this child was immersed in French, they couldn't speak French. So there really is a disconnect in what is being sold to us through EdTech as learning and what's actually unfolding. And, not to be all Pollyanna and, in the old days, we used to walk 100 miles to school, but there was a lot about what we had before the digital age that created much more rich, meaningful comprehension, retention, and learning outcomes. So there's a lot to be gained by managing this overload in EdTech in the classrooms, and that spills out into home life where my daughter comes home, is like, I gotta practice math, and out comes the digital device again. I'm like, no. I've asked for it to be on paper. Let's just do it on paper. And guess who's, thriving in math now much better than when they were practicing on an app. Yeah, she is. So we need to rethink EdTech in schools. Schools increasingly rely on educational tech, but the evidence is mixed. Students now spend 20 to 35% of classroom time on devices, often for routines, not learning, leading to distraction and burnout. Some schools that banned smartphones reported improvement in engagement and academic performance. Even UNESCO and education experts are raising alarms over declining literacy, math, and science outcomes in tech-heavy systems. In many cases, low-tech, human-centered approaches outperform reliance on EdTech, right? We must ask, why, is more EdTech really helping or hurting? I think you know the answer. So I'm going to leave you with 3 key takeaways. It's been an hour. Look at that. Whew, 1 hour. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways and important ideas with powerful impact if we act on them together. First, leverage existing school space for childcare. We already have the infrastructure. Let's use that space to create accessible, play-based environments before and after school, right where kids already are. The second, less screen time, more risky play. Because play isn't optional, it's a child's right. And when we protect it, we give children the chance to grow into confident, capable, and connected humans. Third is limit EdTech overload in classrooms. Technology, of course, has a place, but when it takes over, learning suffers. Let's prioritize human connection, creativity and curiosity. Also, let's be skeptical about AI in EdTech replacing humans in teaching. It's already happening. The billionaires behind EdTech don't let their kids use their creations. That's a bit of a red flag. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please check your email for follow-up resources. If you didn't get a chance to get the screenshot there of my QR code for that digital consumption schedule, I'll send that to you as well. And together we can tip the balance back towards childhoods that are playful, purposeful, and adequately protected. And you can find me here. You can see nurturingplay.org is my website. There's my Instagram, right? LinkedIn, my socials, and my email. Each of those QR codes, one will bring you to subscribe to my newsletter and my blog. And then the other is just so you can get over to my website. There's a few people here, so I'll stick around for some questions, but I will stop the share and the recording and say thank you for tuning in.